Welcome back. Seth Greene here with interview number 3 with the fascinating Ted Thomas, America's Tax Lien Certificate and Tax Deed Authority. Ted, in case they hadn't seen the first 2 videos and their minds aren't totally blown, can review quickly what a tax lien certificate is.
Folks, if you just tuned in, here's how tax lien certificates work. It's really a simple process. Every legislature in every state has passed a law that everybody has to pay taxes. Okay, when they pay taxes, their state's happy, the county's happy, pay the school teachers, pay the fire department, pay the police department, everybody gets paid. But if you don't, or someone doesn't pay the tax, what do? Well, they simply do one thing. They make a claim against the property. Okay, so a tax lien certificate is nothing more than a county claiming that you didn't pay tax. Now, if you don't pay tax, what they'll do is they'll lien the property, and then they'll sell a simple tax lien certificate, which you can see being on the screen right now. It's just a piece of paper. So anybody can buy that paper. So I could go down to the county and say, I want to buy the taxes on that property. Now, why would I do that? You're saying to yourself, you don't want to pay your own taxes. Why would I want to pay someone else? Well, here's why. Because depending upon the state, I could earn 16%, 18%, 24%. Those are the kind of rates of return states pay on those tax certificates. So I buy that certificate, and then you'll finally show up later on and pay your taxes. Maybe you had an accident or your car insurance didn't work, or maybe you just had a new baby and got a lot of expenses. I don't know what happened, but you didn't pay the tax. When you show up, which 97, 98% of the people will do, you're going to pay the tax, and then you're going to have to pay that 18 or 19%. So it's just like a MasterCard or Visa. You pay that baby late, you're going to pay all that interest. So that's what a tax lien certificate is. It's been around for well over 200 years, and I just found a way to put all this information together. Absolutely amazing to put it all together, and you can buy, sitting at your computer, tax lien certificates in 1,500 counties across the United States.
Absolutely incredible. So do the counties automatically send you a check with the interest when a certificate is redeemed? Or are we suddenly now a billing department and I got to chase them down for my money?
No, you don't have to do anything. As a matter of fact, they even have laws that you can't do that. They don't let you go collect any money. They don't want you to talk to the homeowner. They don't want you to go there and charge rent. They don't want you to even show up. And so that homeowner stays on the property. So they're not kicking people out of property. They stay there. And then when they come in and pay the tax, they pay it to the county, of course, not you. You don't have to be a tax collector. All right. They pay the county. When they pay the county will more than likely today, because they're going to ask you to put your bank account information in, they'll just put the money in an account. Then they'll send you a text on your cell phone and say, so-and-so deposit just went into your account. I have people that do $100,000 a year investment in tax certificates, and they just, every time they see me, they grab their phone and say, look, I just got another check. And what do they earn? They earn the highest interest possible. The best rates I know of right now are on treasuries, and they're at 5%, and people making a lot more than that on tax certificates, I can tell you that.
That's a tax lien certificate. Let's do a quick, before we dive into some more advanced questions, quick review on tax defaulted property.
Okay, now tax defaulted property is a whole different ballgame. It's the same situation where the legislature said everybody has to pay the tax. Now the county in that state, they're not so benevolent. They're not going to say, hey, you're a naughty boy, we're going to give you 18 more months or 3 years to pay your tax. You either pay your tax now, or they seize, they confiscate the property, they push the property owner off the property, and then they sell the property, and they start the auctions at pennies. By that I mean, they don't care if the property was worth $300 or $500 or $1 million. They don't care what it's worth. They're going to start the auction at the back taxes. Why? Because all they want is the taxes. They don't care about the value. So when you go to an auction, the law requires, the law in every state is this: they must start the auction and sell the property to the highest bidder. The highest bidder gets the property. So the county doesn't care what they get as long as they get their taxes. So if they get their taxes plus $10, now look, if there's a beautiful colonial house or a nice ranch house, think of a nice ranch house, about 4 or 5 acres, and they got a few horses out back and whatever, okay? But they let it go for tax auction, whatever happened. All right, so it's nice property and all that. Well, that property might be worth, let's say, $400,000. All right, but that auction might start at $30,000. 2 or 3 years back taxes. All right, you might get it for that. I have clients, and I'll show you videos of it. We'll show you clients that are buying properties for $8,000 and $10,000 and $15,000, and then they're selling them for 2 and 3 times that, and they're doing it in weeks' time.
So that's absolutely incredible. And you bring up an interesting question. What's the fastest state to get access to the property?
I'd have to say, I think it's Texas, because in Texas, if you raise your hand, you buy at the auction, then you have the deed to the property. They have 180 days to come in and either pay you 25% or they lose the property.
What are the best states to buy tax deeds in?
I always say it's the state you live in because you don't have to travel and do very much. But the states that are going to see a lot of action is, let's talk a little bit about California, because everybody perceives you're never going to be able to get anything in California. But let me just give you a couple of ideas so that you can think about it. So in Los Angeles, for example, I have people buying property for less than 10 cents on the dollar in Los Angeles now. All right. So are they down there bidding on houses and ranches? No, what I tell them to do is do the opposite, be contrarian, buy residential lots. Now, why would you buy a residential lot? Number one, because it's on a paved road. By that, I mean, in other words, they've already got water, they've got electrical, they've got cable. The property just hasn't been built. And you can see what the value is because there is one built on either side of it or something like that. They're buying those residential lots, which people have forgotten about, or people bought as investments and didn't do anything with. They're buying those properties for 8 and 9 cents on the dollar. We're going to show you a video now of a guy that didn't believe he could do very well. And he went there and he spent $85,000 on 5 residential lots. The value of those lots was $1 million. Watch this video.
Folks, let me explain this. You'll never have to work another day in your life. The insecurity is gone if you just follow in this man's footsteps. Now, we're going to talk about Los Angeles, California, where the starting bid is the back taxes, and they had over 3,000 properties, and that's the auction book that I mentioned earlier. Here's what happened.
My name is Rene Gauthier from Surrey, BC. In October, I went to Los Angeles County tax deed sale. Bought 5 properties for roughly $85,000. They are vacant lots. One is in Malibu, 4 in downtown LA. Gorgeous properties. Their value, tax assessed value, is just over $1 million. I did this after taking Ted's course in under 90 days. Thanks, Ted.
Just imagine Los Angeles, California, $1 million worth of properties, and he only spent $85,000. That's 8.5 cents on the dollar. Folks, this is in your best interest. Once you learn this, you can do it for the rest of your life. But you know what you're thinking? I know what you're thinking. You're saying, how would I ever sell those properties? Well, use my Walmart strategy. What is that? It's buy low and sell low. So we had $1 million worth of properties. Let's give an 80% discount and see what we have left. Well, we still have $200,000 left, and he only spent $85,000. Look at the profit he made. Just one deal, one auction in Los Angeles, California. How about that?
Well, there you have it, folks. If he gave an 80% discount, he still made big money. He still made big money, and he gave an 80% discount to get rid of them. So I teach people, buy it low at the auction price as close as you can, and then don't hold out for top dollar. Sell it low, make yourself cash flow, because cash flow keeps your life going, and there's always another auction. These are not unusual examples. This is happening every day in America.
Is an attorney, or do you need an attorney or a real estate broker or something to buy a tax defaulted property or a tax lien?
No, these auctions are all set up for the public to buy, but let's be cautious here. It's a good idea to find an experienced attorney. Why you want experience? Because you don't want them looking up what quiet title means or what quit claim is, or these different things. You want an attorney that knows and understands this, and you want someone that you can ask questions of. Now, we're in the training business. We've been teaching people this for well over 30 years. We teach you, hire professionals around you. For example, I'm a big nut about marketing property. I want to buy them, and then I go crazy with the marketing. And I'll tell you about that certainly on maybe in this video, but on the next video. But I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid to hire professionals around you, because they'll save you so much money. You make a mistake in real estate, oh, it could be awful painful. But, you know, you get some of those people. So don't be afraid to hire those people and pay them for the few dollars. They say they want $200, $300, $500 an hour. just laugh it off because you're going to make thousands, but you want to make sure you make it and not make mistakes. So I'm not negative on attorneys. I'm not negative on any professionals you want to hire, whether it be an appraiser or people that fix properties or whatever. I believe in hiring professionals.
So hypothetical question, Ted, if you had $50,000 to invest, would you buy a bunch of different small lien tax lien certificates, or would you buy a couple big ones? How would you split that up?
Okay, I would buy a lot of small ones, a lot of from $5,000. Remember, it's $5,000 tax you're paying. So the property's probably worth $250,000. But here's the thing. People can come in and pay their tax anytime. When they come in and pay their tax, then you're going to get paid. So they have to accept the money. So what if you bought 5 of them and 2 of them paid off now and 2 of them paid off in 6 months, and then the last one paid off in 1 year? So you'd get different rates of return on each of those, because in most cases it's an amortized rate of return unless you buy in those redeemable states. No one teaches you redeemable. We'll teach you redeemable. In a redeemable state, in Georgia, in 1 day you can make 20%. In Texas, you can make 25% in 1 day because they're redeemable states. We'll teach you more about that.
That is incredible. What is the cheapest you've ever seen someone get a tax defaulted property for?
Okay, now I always say this is the world of the weird, and people don't believe me, but this guy's name is Bob, and Bob and I have been together now for 20 plus years. He even teaches in our classes now because he's done well over 150 deals. So just listen closely. You're going to be shocked.
I'd have to say that the best dollar for dollar deal I've ever done on a piece of land, it happened in Oklahoma. I went out to an outlying county and I bought a tax lien. The tax lien was on a 25-acre piece of land. The tax lien was only $67.12. You'd think that nobody would ever abandon a piece of land for that small of a tax bill, but things like that do happen. And guess what? Those people never did pay that tax. They never redeemed that tax lien, and I ended up getting the tax deed to that property. I eventually sold that piece of land for $22,500. It's not uncommon to make $10,000 or $20,000 off of a deal.
Folks, there you have it. He bought a property for $67. Now, you can't go to Denny's with you and your wife and whoever you want to take, your dog, for $67 and get dinner nowadays, okay? He bought a property for $67. He sold it for $22,000. You can't figure out the rate of return. It's too high. It's infinite. It's just absolutely unbelievable. All right. Is every deal going to be that good? Hell no, they're not going to be that good. But there's deals like that happening every day. Nationwide, there's probably 3 to 5 million tax certificates. Just in Florida, there's 1 million certificates every year. What if you could sit at home and play with your computer, which is what we can teach you to do? We can give you access. Listen to what I'm going to say. We can give you access to 100 million properties. That's how many there are in the United States. We can give you access to every single one of them.
So if I get a tax deed, if I acquire a home by getting the tax deed and them not paying, or I buy a tax defaulted property, am I now responsible for paying utilities like water, heating, electric, and stuff like that?
Okay, now when you buy a property, that's a tax deed. So you're going to now get that property. You become the owner of that property. So you better pay the taxes or they're going to take it away from you. And if you don't keep the power running, what's going to happen? Something's going to go wrong. You're going to want to pay the water bill. All the bills are yours. And another thing you should think about is, what are you doing about security? Nowadays, you have to think about security. You don't want to have some squatter come in that house, or you don't want some guys going in there and doing drugs and then setting the place on fire. So think about security. You're going to be able to get, I can tell you this is a business of abundance. There's always going to be properties left over at these auctions, leftovers at the auction. There's always going to be too many properties, okay? The key is learning how to sell them, but when you do sell them, or you buy one, either one, whichever you're going to do, when you buy it, you better make sure that you're secured.
So whether I'm online or in person at one of these auctions, can I buy with a credit card?
Actually, thank goodness you can. Okay, I bought properties in New York, of all places, in New York, and used credit cards to do it, just to show I could do it. And you can buy properties in New York, Michigan, and now the state of Arkansas, which don't pass up Arkansas. Arkansas, Linda, my assistant, amazing. She started researching Arkansas this year, and we found some pretty good deals there. So Arkansas, you can now buy with a credit card. Think about that. Folks, buy with a credit card, just make little payments. Or if you want to, and you really want to be savvy, go online and get credit cards that are zero interest credit cards. I bought with a zero interest credit card in New York. I bought zero interest on the credit card. Zero.
Because I remember you and I have known each other a long time, and I went to the Erie County tax deed auction back before COVID. And back then I had to bring money orders or cash for all of the money that I was going to put down. And I didn't know how competitive things would get on the properties that I actually wanted. And I also didn't want to carry, I didn't want to go get 50 different money orders. I did not bring enough cash, but now you can just swipe.
Right. In New York, you can use your credit card. All right. Now, whatever I tell you, verify it with the county. Now, I think I know the rules pretty good, but there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. Okay, so that means there's 3,000 taxing districts. Okay, that means they make their own little laws. All right, so if that's the case, I could be wrong, and maybe Erie County, they changed the rules and did it their way. Also, what I haven't mentioned is there's an addition on the East Coast from New York to Georgia. There's 1,400 municipalities like Pittsburgh. You'll never find them on the county list. You're going to find them on a municipal list. There's 1,400 additional taxing districts that also do this business.
Okay, so we had another question from one of our viewers from the first two interviews who said, what about the homes that are still in debt with the banks? How can a tax lien just buy that house unless the bank writes it off? And that seems unlikely to happen.
Okay, so people that don't pay their taxes are probably not paying the bank. But let's say that they were paying the bank, because it's the world of the weird. Someone could pay the bank and not pay the tax man. All right, but the point is, when the bank doesn't do what they're supposed to do, the bank has a requirement to collect money, but we won't go into that. What I will go into is the fact that this property has gone into default. When it goes into default, the county, the local government, is required by law to enforce the law. And the law says that they have to give notices of default. And they have to give notices of default to everybody that's on the title. So that would be you, or it would be the property owner. It would also be the bank. It would be also anybody that had a judgment against that property. So they all get notice. So the bank is always noticed. Now, the bank, when they notice, it's a registered letter. If you haven't had one of those, you probably don't want to get one, because it usually comes from an attorney. But there's a registered letter, and you have to respond to it. It says you must respond. So they send those letters to the bank. The problem is the president of the bank doesn't open the mail. It's probably an intern learning it. She said, what's a registered letter? Throws it in the drawer. All right. If the bank doesn't know, they don't show up and protect their interest. If they do know, they still might not protect their interest. So if all the bank has to do to stop an auction is pay the tax. Now, every mortgage or deed of trust has 3 covenants within it. I'm not going to get too deep here. The covenants are that you'll pay it, that you'll pay the taxes, and you'll pay your insurance. It's a promissory note. That's what a mortgage is, a promissory note. Okay, if you haven't paid your taxes, you're in violation of the covenant. A covenant's a promise. You're in violation of it. So the bank could have foreclosed on you the day you didn't pay the tax, but they're not paying attention. So we don't want to start sitting here criticizing banks, but folks, they don't pay attention. So now they're criticized.
For sure. Oh, man, you are dropping golden nugget after golden nugget. Folks, stay tuned. Look for the next email to the next video. Make sure you look for the link for the very special training event Ted is doing that is coming up, and we will see you in the next video.